Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Hey, what's up guys? It's Nick here, and we have another video to break down today. This one's involving Will Smith's apology to Chris Rock. Now, we all know a few months ago during the Oscar awards ceremony, Chris Rock was presenting the award for Best Documentary, which would go on to be won by Questlove. And during that presentation, he made a few jokes, and one of them was towards Jada Pinkett Smith, making fun of her shaving her head and comparing her to G.I. Jane. But Will Smith didn't take too kindly to that. He walked up stage, and we all know what happened next. Now, this video is not necessarily to critique whether we should accept his apology or not. It's more so to break down what an apology even consists of, and does his apology meet some of these criteria, and other thoughts I might think about the whole situation as a whole, as usual, as we do with psychology and science. Now, before we even get into the clip, let's go over what I'll be using as a criteria to rate the apology. Now, I got this from psychologytoday.com, which is a reputable source for all types of psychological resources. And this particular article, and I'll put the link in the description, talked about 5 different phases of an apology. We're gonna see if this video clip covers all 5 of these different phases. Now, the first one is a clear-cut, I'm sorry. Pretty straightforward, right? The next one is having regret for your action and what you have done. The third one is understanding the social norms that were broken in the act that you carried out to warrant such an apology. The fourth phase is having empathy towards the person that you have harmed or hurt and understanding what they're going through. And the last stage is asking for forgiveness. So let's check out this apology and see if it meets these requirements, and let's break it down. Let's go.
Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy.
Now, this first part of his apology talks about why did he do it during his acceptance speech when he won the Best Actor award. Now, think about what he said. It was all a blur. He could even collect his thoughts. This actually isn't unreasonable to hear, because when we're in a fight or flight mode, he clearly was in an instinctual reactive response. We have something in our brain called the amygdala. This is our emotional response center. It's to get us up and ready for action. When we talk about fight or flight, this is the center for that. Now, he definitely was in that mode when he went up on stage. He was reactive. He didn't really think about and process, which happens in the frontal lobe. Now, the fact that he was able to collect his thoughts, that's believable, because when your senses are heightened to that level, you're not always able to take in information in real time. So by the time he came back down to his parasympathetic state, meaning more relaxed, more steady, it could have been hours later when he was at home, and then he really was able to gather his thoughts. Then you could probably ask, why didn't he go on Instagram or social media once he collected his thoughts later that night? Well, by that point, the world was talking about it, and now he had to make it a PR response, so it was no longer really in his hands. So 3 months, you could argue is a long time, but when you talk about apologizing, it has to come from the heart, and maybe he really had to get his mind right and get back to it when he was truly ready, because it has to make sense and be sincere.
Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Okay, so this clip right here shows a clear-cut I'm sorry. So this is what's required for an apology, right? So he stated the exact words. He's sorry, apologized to Chris. He would even go on to apologize to his family and make sure that, hey, what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry that I did it. So this is part 1 of the 5 phases.
But I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults.
Okay, so this segment shows he understands he broke social norms. In our civilization, it's typically not common to just walk up and hit someone hard as you can. Generally speaking, if he wasn't famous and celebrity, he would have been taken away in handcuffs. So he understands that was not the right way to respond. If he did feel offended, he could have talked it out later and addressed it and see what he really meant if it was that deep. And maybe they would have all laughed about it, including Jada, but he did not do that. So him right here understanding that, hey, this is not how we carry out our actions. We have disagreements. It's good that he's able to understand that, and it shows he has some remorse for what he did.
You know, that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. So I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I want to apologize to Chris's family, specifically Tony Rock. You know, we had a great relationship. You know, Tony Rock was my man. And this is probably irreparable. I spent the last 3 months replaying and understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment.
So you can see here that he's being empathetic now. He's showing empathy towards Chris. He's showing empathy towards his family, as he states. Now, he says he didn't understand how many people got hurt, meaning he put himself in the shoes and understanding how deep this goes. It's more than just a slap, acting out of character, not doing something wrong. It's the fact that you impacted someone's life. Now, they have to go on with their lives dealing with the consequences of something you did. They had no say in the matter. People argue, oh, he should have ducked, or he might have deserved it even, and we'll go more into that. But at the end of the day, the person who did it is the one who's responsible, and he has to understand the consequences of his actions and how it impacted everyone else and how it branches even lower from the initial person affected.
After Jada rolled her eyes, did she tell you to do something? No. It's like, you know, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris. Jada had nothing to do with it.
So they asked here, was Jada prompting you to go on stage? And he says that she didn't. Based on what I saw in the video and most of us saw, it doesn't seem that she said anything, but she did give facial expressions that she was very annoyed by the joke. Now, granted, she has the right to be annoyed. That's the beauty of life. We can be annoyed by things, but we cannot control how others say or do things against us. So her facial expression may have set something off in Will. He talks about how he had dealings with Chris and maybe that impacted as well on top of the joke, and then he went on stage. But the thing is, a lot of people are taking Jada and Will's defense, saying that's how we should defend our women. People are making Chris the bad guy. And I'm a big believer is no matter what the verbal circumstances is, you have to be responsible for your own behavior, because you can blame him saying he made a joke that wasn't in good taste. But when you think about it, that's all Chris or most comedians do, and that's what makes them funny. And there's a whole psychology of why comedy is needed, and that could be another video in itself. But the fact that he took it on stage and hit him was not cool. And no matter how you view it, the perpetrator is always wrong. Unless it's self-defense and they attack you first, there's no reason. We've all been in altercations where we might have felt offended and we wanted to retaliate, whether it be verbally or physically. But once we come out of our character, the narrative is no longer in our hands, and the world, in this case, since he's a celebrity, the world can write its own narrative. And as you see, it went its own way. But the point I'm trying to make is Chris was never to blame for this occurrence, no matter what. And anyone thinks the opposite is kind of wrong for that, in my opinion.
What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? So there's two things. One, disappointing people is my central trauma. I hate when I let people down. So it hurts. It hurts me psychologically and emotionally to know I didn't live up to people's image and impression of me. And the work I'm trying to do is I am deeply remorseful, and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself, right? I'm human, and I made a mistake.
Now, this right here made me think a little bit, and I say, was there gaslighting or even narcissism going on? Because while I get Will is sorry, and I think he truly is, this part right here made me think he brought in more of his own personal issues. He said his trauma. Now, before we get into what I'm about to say, trauma is basically any distressing event that causes great stress or discomfort in your life to the point it affects you. Now, we all deal with trauma day to day. Some deal with it more severely, and it can even develop into something called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, when it's to the point where you can't fully function day to day. Now, he mentions that his trauma is being held to a high regard and letting people down. Now, when people say things like this, when they say, what's your toxic trait? And then you give something positive, oh, my toxic trait is I care too much. that's really kind of counterproductive to the point, because how do you acknowledge true remorse when you're gonna give an example of something good? No one wants to let anyone down, of course, but to say that his trauma is that, and it's kind of dismissing some blame, because even though he showed his true apology by saying the words, he showed empathy, he showed that he broke social norms, I didn't really see a lot of regret or requests for forgiveness. Now you can say that he reached out and he wanted to apologize directly, but I didn't hear the, well, I shouldn't have done this. I heard a lot of, I should have did it better, or what I did wasn't the best way. All in all, he should have never done this. That should have been clearly stated. And if that's not shown, the apology is not, I guess, fulfilled based off of these standards. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not saying he's not sincere. I'm not saying that he's not genuine, but when we take it all, it's hard because the status he's in. He's a celebrity. He's an actor. He has the whole world looking at him in a bad light. So of course, from a PR place, he needs to do this. But at the other side of things, people want to say, is he really being truthful and sincere? Now, I can't make that call. You can't make that call. Only him and Chris can hash this out. So with that being said, I think it's good that he apologized. I take it. If I was Chris, I'll come around eventually, and maybe they will. Who knows? It's great that he did it. It's great that he was able to point out some of his blame. And all in all, this is all you can ask for, because you can't change the past. The law of irreversibility, and that's it. You can't do nothing different. You can only move forward. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Like I said, this wasn't really an opinionated piece per se about whether Will's apology was good or bad, right or wrong. It's more so just looking at different aspects from a psychological standpoint. So as I always say, thanks for letting me break it down and get your mind right.